Okay. Oh, yeah. Cool. Well, that's really good to hear with all of the progress made with Instagram. And like I was just saying, I think Instagram is just such a wide open field to continue exposing who you are and what you're doing to new people, and giving them an opportunity to respond and to resonate with your message. And I know for me, I'm kind of posting a lot about some specific niches, motivation, and my 3 points are motivation, muscles, and music. Just trying to be as specific as possible, but I'm probably not as specific as many people recommend. I know Shalene Johnson kind of talks about your Instagram profile should be about one thing, and if you want to do another topic, then it should be about something else. And I'm using social media in a little bit different of a way of really trying to be more kind of homespun and personal rather than like slick and businessy. Um, for two reasons. My first reason is that it's me. I want social media to be a reflection of just who I am. And the second reason, I feel like that's a lot more communicatable for everybody here on the team. I want you to feel like you don't have to set up this huge like business persona to be successful as a coach, because it's just not true. Just really trying to keep things as flat as possible, and as inviting and easy and light as possible. It's going to give you guys an easier on ramp into reaching out and building your own team. But I want to just first of all introduce Chris Coburn, and just thank you, Chris, for joining us on our team. I'm glad that we have doubled our amount of Chris's on the. At this rate, by next week, we'll be crawling with Chris's. Today I'd love to hear a couple things. Chris, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your story and your journey. And feel free to share about triumphs and challenges and ups and downs. And then specifically, I know I'm really interested in just some of your best fitness tips, because
Okay.
if you're not following Chris on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, you need to. He is the beast. He's got an incredible transformation, and one thing that's really impressed me with your transformation, Chris, is that you've just been so consistent, throughout the years, and while you're always pushing yourself and always going to higher planes. I just love how this is just you've found a way to be sustainable. It seems like that.
Yeah. Thanks.
With your physicality and with your muscles and keeping your body fat pretty low, and so I really appreciate that about you.
Thanks. Appreciate the call tonight, Michael. I was actually kind of surprised you reached out to me. Probably not considered a number one choice for a team call, but
well, you were my third choice, so
okay, that's fine. Bring me down to earth, thanks. So basically, I've been a coach since, it was January 2012. Is that right? I think that's right. And yeah, it was right after P90X2 came out was when I first started as a coach. So I'm actually a coach on Wayne Wyatt's team. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Wayne, but so him and I have become pretty good friends through the last couple of years, 3 years. And so it's been really cool to get to know a lot of the guys on that team, as well as, I don't really spend a lot of time in the Team Next Level group, but I do know a few people because there's obviously some cross-team chatter going on there. But before I started as a coach, back in 2009 is when I actually got started with, the program that most everybody around here does with P90X. And at that time, I basically had, 2 or 3 sets of dumbbells. I was using like a towel for my mat. I was using my Xbox to, play the DVDs or whatever. And so it was really like a bootstrapping kind of, I just want to get this thing started, which is, the story to tell, because a lot of people think that they need to have everything in order to get started. And, that's certainly not the case. It wasn't the case for me anyway. So if I kind of fast forward through that, I didn't have a weight loss transformation story. I was actually a pretty scrawny, fat, skinny kid, growing up, or skinny fat kid, I guess is the right term. And so I was always kind of thin, weak. So this program really introduced me to a different kind of fitness that I was accustomed to previously. Most of the time it was just athletic type fitness programs, or athletics in general through school or college or whatever. So I never really had a consistent framework to actually, make fitness a daily part of my life. So this was something kind of new in that respect, but also just, it really got me going. And so from that point on, it was just kind of, okay, what's next? Because I wanted to continue to do something. But I continued to do P90X for a couple of more rounds. And then I started to kind of venture off into my own little thing, and kind of, I wouldn't say left the Beachbody world, but at that point I'd kind of gotten tired of the P90X program, but I didn't even know that there were other programs available, because at this time I was not working with a coach. I didn't know anything about the Beachbody community. I was just simply, had the DVDs, plugged them in, whatever. So then I finally got introduced to some folks through the community. I think it was through the forums on the Beachbody website, which I don't even know how many people use anymore. But at that time, I wasn't on Facebook. I don't even know if Facebook was really as prevalent as it is now, of course. So I got plugged into some groups there and was communicating with some folks. And, that was another kind of spark, if you will, to kind of get me reinvigorated into the process. So I got some new equipment, I got some new dumbbells, that sort of things. Again, those things, when you start adding new little twists to your schedule, to your routine, they kind of reinvigorate, re-get you going, and make you want to do something a little bit more than you were doing previously. So that kind of leads me into the, when I started as a coach. At that time, that was when the P90X2 program came out. And I'm not sure how many of you have done that program. And actually, to this day, it's probably still one of my favorite programs. I know a lot of people gave it flack, too long, whatever. But it's still one of my favorite programs. And through that process, I was part of a challenge group. And we started in January, I think it was January 3rd or something like that. And with that group, I met probably 15 or 20 guys that to this day we are like best buds. And so, one of the cool things about, what we do is, we're all working in our own homes, trying to get ourselves better from a fitness standpoint. But at the same time, we have that community to kind of lean on to, get us going on a daily basis or ask questions. And, those are the types of things that you can't really sell to anyone, or you can't really, it's kind of like we're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? So we know how much fun and how much benefit it provides to everyone. And so it's really hard for me to when I talk to people about, what the group is all about and what it's done for me. And it's hard for me when they say, I'm not interested in that. It's like, oh, man, I can't believe what you're turning down. It's unbelievable. But, those are the types of things that, as I said, we know the benefit, and, it's really what's kept me going since, that 2012 year when I got started with those guys. And so I've just kind of been doing all the programs since then, because that was the point at which I knew that, hey, there's more than just P90X. So I did, P90X2, then I went to like the Asylum programs. I've never actually done the Insanity program. I've never been a big fan of the whole, like, go as hard as you can with cardio until you throw up. So I've never had the joy of those programs or that program, but I've done all the other ones for the most part, except for the, once you kind of do some of the more advanced or extreme programs, you don't generally go back to the introductory programs. I've not done a lot of those, but anything that's new that's come out, I've at least tried. And so Michael and I actually met, I want to say it was that year, 2012 sometime. We just got introduced to each other through the Team Next Level group. And then you introduced me to Jome.
Yes.
And so actually later that year, I took him up on an offer to do some photography. So I went up to Chicago and got some photography done with Jome. So that was an interesting experience, to say the least. But that was another thing that it was just another milestone, or a marker in where I knew what I was working towards, right? So I had planned that maybe 3 or 4 weeks, or not weeks, it was probably a month or two in advance. And so I was like, oh man, I got to get in great shape in order for that photo shoot. And so those are the types of things that have really kept me going, as well as, I'll have an event or I'll have something that I'm working towards. It's not just, I want to finish this program. I mean, those are great things to kind of have as goals and whatnot. But when you've done a program once, then you have to figure out a way to kind of raise the bar, if you will. And so those are the types of things that keeps me going. So I have that event. So I had that photo shoot in 2012. And then in 2013, the summer that we went to Summit in Las Vegas, I was actually asked to do an interview, photo shoot and interview for the Body Beast program. So again, I'm like, all right, I got to get in great shape, or I got to, be my best when I get there. So that, was another just thing that kept me going, as much as I, led it to me to get to where I wanted to be at that point. So those are the types of things that kind of, keep me focused, along with the groups, because I still have groups that I'm working with through Facebook, with either customers or with just other coaches that I'm involved with. So a lot of all of what we, do day to day is really the result of where I'm at. So there's nothing real special or secret about, how do I keep myself motivated and how do I keep going. It's just the same stuff that we try and invigorate with our customers is, you have a goal, you have a why that you have, and those change every 3 to 6 months. And if they don't, then you're probably going to start falling off. And so that's kind of where I've led up into, and as of right now, working through the Body Beast program. Matter of fact, about me and about 300 or 200 other guys are working through the same program as well. And we're all, well, most of us anyway, are planning on doing the physique competition at Summit next year. And so, that's just another goal that I have right now that I'm working towards. So, those goals keep me focused. I'm a pretty self-motivated individual. So I kind of thrive on that stuff alone, if you will, but it's also great to have all the companionship, all the people that are in those groups helping me along the way too.
That's awesome. Just a couple of things that immediately stood out to me, Chris, of what you just said is, number one, being self-motivated. I resonate a lot with your part of the story in that I also started P90X on my own. I didn't even know about the coaching, about anything. I guess I was assigned a random coach who never reached out to me. And, and then, I got connected with Josh through YouTube. But I do run into people who say they're very independent and they don't need a support group. So like whenever I talk about these challenge groups that we're running, a lot of times kind of the moment that I say like, yeah, it's great, we have this whole community of people who are all working together, and then I hear, oh well, I don't need that. I'm pretty self-motivated. And I try to do my best to kind of say, like, yeah, I understand. I'm actually the exact same way. And I found for me that it helps me to actually raise the game even more. But I'm curious to know kind of what's your perspective on that idea of being a really self-motivated person?
I have a few people that are like that as well. And, they're in my groups, they participate, but I know I don't have to check in on them to like, hey, are you doing your workout? Hey, are you, do you need something? Because they're going to reach out to me first.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the, work with the willing kind of thing. I don't like to turn anyone down, of course, if they want my help initially, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not your babysitter, right? So, I tend to lose a little bit of patience with people who don't have at least a little bit of self-motivation, because I can't expend the willing to, right? But from a perspective, I can relate to what you said too, because I have a couple of people that have said, hey, that all sounds good, but I'm not really too sure about what's the deal with the online, what's the Facebook group, and, what do I have to do there? And a lot of times, I just say, well, here, I'll invite you to the group. You can see what it's like for a couple of days or, a week or whatever. And then you can kind of just experience it and then let me know if it's something that you're interested in. And a lot of times they'll come back and say, yeah, this is better than I thought it was, or it's more, it's just different than the way you explained it. So, maybe I just do a bad job of explaining it. I don't know, but does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. And immediately right before this call, I was talking with this girl who desperately wants to do the 21-day fix. And she's actually like a friend of somebody who's in one of our motivation groups. And I was following up with her. She kind of dropped the ball last week, and I'm just kind of in, hey, everything's okay. I want to, join the motivation group. And then she responds, and she's responding on her phone, because you can kind of see like if they're on a computer or phone. So I can just imagine she's already like doing 5,000 other things. And, all she asked was, is that some Facebook thing? And then, then I responded, I'm like, I said, oh, well, it's actually, we're doing Facebook message threads instead of groups. And, kind of like a chat room. And then she said, well, if it's part of a group, I'd be interested. But if it's messages, then I'm not interested. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, I continued to be helpful, and I said, hey, that's great, no problem. Hey, just so you know, they're bundling 21-day fix and Shakeology. It's $50 off. Here's the link to get it. Good luck. Hope that works well for you. Because I do think that sometimes when people turn us down, it's actually a blessing in disguise, and then kind of dodging a bullet, because just like you said, you have to be working with the willing. And if they're not even in a place where they would consider being a part of the community that you are trying to build, that's the first thing that you would have to convince them of. And then there's going to be 500 other things that you would have to convince them of, and that's exhausting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
You mentioned also about competition prep and the photo shoot prep, and your photos with Joan were awesome. I know he was very proud of him as well. What are your secrets? What do you do to the last month? What's the Coburn secret?
So I've done it a couple of different ways. And really there's no real kind of secret in the sense that it all boils down to nutrition, right? Because I tell this to almost everybody I talk to. It's like the workouts will do what they're supposed to do, provided you actually do them. It's the nutrition where the difference really, the results are shown. And so when I did the photo shoot with Jome, I did a lot of my research online. I was still kind of new to that whole process. And so a lot of what I was doing was, again, just independent research through your typical, bodybuilding.com, some of the different fitness or physique personalities out there have resources. Greg Plitt as one, Rob Riches as another. So I would just kind of, all right, let's take all this stuff and figure out, what they're doing, and just maybe kind of take the best of everything, or at least from what I can see, because I don't know, I didn't really explain this at the beginning. I'm a technical guy, so I work in software engineering. So I kind of am really analytical about things. But I also have 4 kids and, work full time. So I have to kind of figure out what's going to work best in the shortest amount of time, or, what's going to work best and still make, everyone else here want to have me around. So what I have been doing, when I was doing that photo shoot prep for Jome, it was kind of, I wouldn't say it was the right way to do it, but it was the way I thought it was going to work for me. And it did. I did have the results I was looking for at that time. But I probably wouldn't do it. I definitely haven't done it the same way going forward, because most of what I do now is based on nutrition that is sustainable, right? So what I was doing kind of leading up to that photo shoot with Joan was not sustainable. It was, high protein, low carbs, like literally less than 50 grams of carbs per day. And so no one's fun to be around when they're that low in carbs. And like I said, it's not sustainable. You just have no energy to do anything. So that was probably the wrong way to do it. And I definitely wouldn't do that again. Whereas now I'm doing it more sustainable. And so I'm working towards next July, basically, at this point. So I'm doing what I would call reverse dieting. I'm not sure if the concept is familiar with any of you guys. So basically, you have to find your maintenance level of calories, just like you would for any other program that you're doing. And then for most people, they need to be at a deficit of that in order to lose weight, right? So I need to gain some weight, but I don't want to put on fat. Obviously, I want to gain muscle mass more than I want to gain body fat. There's going to be some that comes with it. It's almost inevitable, right? So, but in order to minimize that, what I do is slowly increase the number of calories, maybe every 3 to 4 weeks. And the number that I increase is probably anywhere from 100 to 250 max. Because when you're only dealing with that, even if you err on the side of, well, I'm adding too much fat too soon, you're only talking about 250 calories. So it's really easy to drop back without feeling like you just cut out half of your nutrition, right? So you slowly add until you aren't gaining weight, right? So once you say, all right, I'm going to add 250 calories, okay, I'm not gaining weight, I need to add more. So you just kind of slowly do that every 3 to 4 weeks until you come to the point at which you're at the comfortable body weight you want to be at. And then of course the body fat percentage dictates, when to start cutting and that sort of thing. But so this is kind of the prep that I did for this past summer. Once I was at that point where I said, okay, now I need to start cutting my diet or cutting my body fat a little bit, then it was basically just the opposite, right? So the difference though was I was doing 40% carbs, 40% protein, and 20% fat. So, and I have done that for probably the last 18 months. That's been my macro ratio, and it works great for me. The number of calories obviously will vary from where I'm at now, which is about 3,300 calories, to where I was leading up to the competition, which was about 23 or 2,400 calories. So, when you're talking about cutting from 33 to 24, you don't want to do that immediately, because you'll be an unhappy person and you'll actually probably negatively affect your metabolism. And sure, you'll lose weight and you'll lose it quickly. But then when you get down to that level, it's going to be really hard to add, because by that time you're so deprived and so like, I just want to eat. You're probably going to go into a gorging state and you're going to put on fat really fast, because at that point you're going to probably easily eat, 2 or 3 times more than you would. And you're going to your body can't absorb it because it's so used to being so low at that point. So it's kind of a slow build up and then a slow cut down. At least that's the idea. You have to kind of plan that out. But if you don't have that much time, then you kind of have to take certain measures where you're adjusting those macronutrients a little bit more towards the protein, less carbohydrates. But so those things, like I said, the basics that they give you in all these programs are pretty much the same in terms of how you go about losing weight, because that's generally where most people fall within the Beachbody customer spectrum, right? They don't really do a great job, in my opinion, in the Body Beast program nutrition guide of explaining that, because I've seen a lot of people start that program and they're too much overweight, and they start with the guide as it's laid out for people who are 10% body fat or less, and they start taking in 3,500 calories or whatever it is, and all they're doing is gaining fat. And unfortunately they don't have people to tell them don't do that. But I try to tell people, follow the guide for food advice, don't follow it for the nutritional advice until you get to the level at which you're able to cut that body fat without cutting your nutrition intake in half or whatever happens to be, because again, that's not sustainable, and it's going to be bad for you in the long run from a health perspective.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. Just so I have clarity, and I want to make sure everybody has a chance to ask any questions. As far as the baseline for your calories when you're going up, you start by figuring out what is your maintenance level. So, you just by living, you burn 2,500 calories, and then start there for 3 weeks, and then after 3 weeks, bump it up another 100 to 200 calories, and then continue up from there. Is that basically the idea?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on your goals, of course. So if you know you are where you want to be, for example, you might have just finished. I think you're doing X3, right?
Yeah, although I'm switching to Body Beast.
I'm sorry?
I'm switching to Body Beast now, actually.
Okay, so maybe you're at the level of where you want to be from a body fat percentage perspective, right? And so if that's the case, you probably already kind of have figured out where you are from a maintenance perspective. And so if that's the case, then yeah, you just want to add like I said, 250 calories is the most that I would probably go up. And keep it there for at least 3 weeks, because it takes a little bit of time for your body to figure out what's going on. And so you might have, a day where you drop a couple pounds, or you might have a day where you add a couple pounds. So that's all white noise, right? So you want to see where you're at the end of the 3 to 4 weeks and see, okay, did I gain weight and maintain the same muscle mass? I'm sorry, the same body fat percentage. Mm-hmm. If you did, then that means you've gained muscle mass. So that's good. And it just, it varies from person to person. That's why I always say you don't want to jump up 500, because for you, 500 may work, but for someone else, 500 is way too much. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of have to gauge that as you're going along. And that's why you don't have to take your body fat percentage every week to figure this out. I don't do that. I use the scale and kind of what I see in the mirror to know, okay, I know how I looked last week for the most part. I know I'm doing well from that perspective. So, don't get caught up too much in the numbers per se, but, tracking the nutrition is obviously important regardless of your goals. So if you're trying to lose weight or gain weight, because that's the only way you know. And it's funny because adding clean calories is really, really hard to do. And it's almost like a job. Because I'm eating 6 meals per day, right? So I'll have a large breakfast, pre and post workout, and then, 2 snacks throughout the day, and then 2 meals through the remainder of the day. And when you're only talking about 500 or 550 or so calories per one of those meals, that doesn't sound like a lot. But when you're talking about it's a cup full of rice, 10 ounces or 12 ounces of chicken, and that's only 300 calories, you're like, oh my gosh, I still have to eat 300 more calories. So, a lot of protein bars, a lot of oatmeal, a lot of, sweet potatoes, those types of things are sustaining and also, good bodybuilding type of food. So,
yeah. Are there certain kinds of protein or carb sources that you like to gravitate toward or stay away from? Like, do you do grains, or do you try to stick to, more like vegetable-based protein or carb sources?
So I'm a creature of habit, probably to a detriment. Like I can literally eat the same thing every day if I had to, and it wouldn't affect me one way or the other. So generally, a lot of chicken breast, of course, a lot of turkey, ground turkey or turkey breast is good too. Fish occasionally. I mean, it's hit and miss with me, because some days I feel like it and some days I don't. And then if it doesn't taste very good, you're just like, oh, I just wasted this meal. Now I have to eat it. So those are always, I use those sparingly because I don't want to ruin a meal with bad fish. I don't know, just me, but so those are the main protein sources I kind of stick around to. But I'll still have beef. I don't have beef that often, but I do have it. It's not. I don't follow any kind of paleo.
Yeah.
I don't follow any of those like by the book regimens or anything. It's all pretty straightforward, basic stuff from a protein perspective, and then definitely grains. I don't eliminate anything. I don't say anything I don't eat. I mean, I don't eat junk food, if I guess that counts, but mostly oatmeal, pasta, sweet potatoes, or regular white potatoes are fine. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that they're not, but they're fine. Those are probably my main sources of carbs. I do eat fruit. I usually keep it to 1 piece of fruit per day, mainly because it's hard to get fruit that's in season that's good all year. Anyway, so I just have apples mostly and bananas. And then I have berries too, but I don't like count those because they're for the most part low glycemic anyway, so they don't really affect my carb intake one way or the other. So have all the berries you want, as far as I'm concerned. And then from a vegetable standpoint, I love vegetables. I will eat almost any other vegetable or any vegetable. My kids and my wife, not so much. So we have to play the, what does everyone else eat or what will they eat? So we stick to, for the most part, green beans, zucchini, asparagus, nothing real outlandish, but nothing real, exotic there. So.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Guys, what questions do you have about, anything that Chris has mentioned?
Yeah, I had a question. I know you said later on you didn't really need to check your body fat measurement any other way but the mirror. But when you were first starting early on, what method did you use? Did you use the calipers or the electronics or what?
Sure. Yeah. So originally I didn't have a body fat way to measure my body fat other than I think there's like a Navy tape measure method. I think you measure your wrist and your waist and your neck, and I don't even know how accurate it was, but regardless, that was all I had. Right. But now I use the calipers, not the ones that Beachbody sells, but there's another set that actually it works a lot better because I'll do it by myself. And so it's like a spring loaded one. Anyway, so I'll use that as well as there's a website. Let me see if I can get it for you. It's a pretty commonly used one, but let me just bring it up real quick. So the website is called linearsoftware.com. It's linear-software. And they have a free online body fat calculator. You just take those calipers and enter your measurements on any one of the different measurement techniques. The one that I do is the 4-point Jackson Pollock 4 method, just because the others, the ones that have a lot of different measurement points, are hard to do by yourself. And that one, I don't put a lot of emphasis on the body fat number, just as long as it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. Yeah. I don't have a set of calipers at home. I used one early on, and lately I've been using the one at the gym, which is the little Omron is horribly inaccurate from what I can tell.
Well, I do know, based on what some other people have told me, is that the most accurate is a bod pod, which if you are so inclined to know the exact number of your body fat, you can get that done for like $30. And then the least accurate, at least from what I've heard, is the biggest waste of money anyway, is the ones that where you like hold on the sides. Yeah. Because what that does is it just measures the distance or the time that it takes the electrical impulse to go through your body, which means if the batteries are low, it's like it doesn't send a very good, anyway, it's really bad. And they charge a lot of money for those, and they're totally.
Yeah, that's the one at the gym. They are really hokey. And it depends on the day. It depends on the battery. It depends on your skin connectivity, if you've been exercising.
Yeah.
How much water's in your body.
Yeah. So if you don't have one, I would recommend you not buy one of those and just get a set of calipers for like $10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wanted to buy one of my own. I just didn't know where a good place was. I know we have one, but if there's another cheap one that's easier that you can do by yourself, man, that would be good.
Yeah, the one that I have, I got from Amazon. I think it was like $9. The one thing I don't like about the one that's the one that Beachbody sells is you have to squeeze it in order to do the measurement, whereas this one, it works in the opposite direction. So it has a spring that you have to open it, and then it closes by itself.
Yeah, because it depends on how much pressure you put on the thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're in a really hyper mood, you might, look, I have no fat.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I looked at some of your photos on Facebook too while you were talking. Those are really impressive.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Knows what he's talking about.
Michael, I forgot to say happy anniversary to you also real quick.
Oh, thanks.
Oh yeah.
You're taking the night off for a call? This is really nice. Is Rodrigo like pacing by the door?
We have an arrangement. I tell him the call is going to be only a certain amount of time, and then when it's double, he gets to just say that he was right and I was wrong.
I thought maybe you had to buy him a pair of shoes.
He just bought 2 pairs.
Oh, he doesn't need any.
Yeah, yesterday was our 7-year anniversary of meeting, so yeah.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What other questions you guys have?
Well, I am going to be starting Body Beast in a couple weeks, and I've never had a weight problem, except that I can't gain it.
Yeah.
And I've always been told that in order for me to do that, that I've got to cut back on my cardio, because I really enjoy cardio way too much as well. So
Yeah.
what kind of balance is there going to have to be as far as being able to physically eat enough food where I'm actually going to be able to gain weight through Body Beast?
Yeah. And I know Michael could answer this question just as easy as I can, because the principles of weight loss and weight gain are no different regardless of the program you're doing. But just to kind of, I don't do cardio, right? So I'll like leading up to the competition that I did in June. I wanted to do more cardio, but I just actually never got the time or made the time. So I didn't do a lot of cardio. The program, if you're doing it correctly, really is almost a cardio workout if you maintain the pace of the video. Now, I'll say that I don't always do that. I'll use the pause button because I really think that those guys that are demoing the moves are really trying to get it done in the time frame that's under an hour. But take the extra time, pause the video, make sure you're using good form in that sense. But to answer your question with respect to food intake, and if you're trying to gain muscle mass, you really have to cut out that cardio, at least to the extent that you're not consuming the calories that you're taking in, right? So if you want to add the cardio, you're going to need to eat more. But at the same time, you have to consider, when you're eating those calories also can make a little bit of difference. If you're doing your cardio before the Body Beast program, meaning you do your cardio and then you work out with the weights, you can kind of make up for it throughout the day, right? Because you're probably not going to be able to go as hard in the Body Beast program if you're doing cardio beforehand. But you're going to be lean as hell at the end, right? So you may not be able to gain, let's say 15 pounds, but you may be able to gain 8 pounds. But if you gain 8 lean muscle mass pounds, that's still pretty good. So, the biggest thing for you is probably just going to be making sure you're keeping track of what you're taking in. And, you may need to weigh yourself once a week just to kind of make sure that you're on track with that. And depending on, again, the program suggests 50% carbs, I think 30% protein and 20% fat. I forget exactly what it is, but you may need to start with that depending on how you want to approach it. If you want to keep that cardio, then you may need to use that percentage. I don't like to go too much above 45% on any of those macros. So it just depends on your goals, of course. But so you may just need to keep an eye on that on a weekly basis and see, are you trending towards gaining weight? If not, then you need to eat a little bit more. And you make sure that when you're eating more, and this is, again, like I said earlier, I'm always at the 40-40-20 ratio. So when you're adding more, make sure you're staying with those macros. You're not just adding more carbs. You're not just adding more protein. Make sure that you're getting the same ratios when you're adding those.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Chad, I'm curious if you don't mind sharing your current height and weight.
I'm 5'8", and I'm 140 pounds.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's been the same since I was 17.
Yeah, I'm at my high school weight too, pretty much. I think I gained about maybe 8 pounds on Body Beast, maybe.
Nice.
You guys make me sick.
Michael and I talk about this disappearing 5 pounds, and now it's 6 pounds, Michael.
You're swinging 6 pounds in a day?
Yeah, typically. Yeah, not every day, but yeah, it happens. Isn't that strange? Is my scale broken?
Chris, we've been talking about this. Like, I'm not controlled by the number on the scale, but I am curious and mesmerized by this phenomenon that I will go to bed, I'll weigh myself, go to bed, and wake up, and even before I pee, I'll just get out of the scale, and I will be like 3 to 5 pounds lighter. And
yeah, same.
Where did all that go? Did my body generate that much heat while I was sleeping?
Interestingly enough, your body does burn calories as you're sleeping. Obviously, it hasn't burned 10,000 calories in order to compensate for the the 6 or 5 pounds of body weight. But you do burn some energy, and of course, depending on how much water you're taking in during the day, you may be using up some of that water. Obviously not sweating, but it does just leave your body, right? So I don't have a scientific explanation for it. So I also have the same thing. I'll go to bed and I'll weigh 187 pounds, and I'll wake up and I'll weigh 182. I'm like, okay, that's weird, but
5 pounds. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, is somebody giving us a haircut while we're sleeping?
Right.
Maybe we're putting out a lot of heat when we're asleep. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
On an unrelated note, I'm also wetting my bed. I don't understand why.
Could be related.
I've noticed this too. In and out of the shower, I gain a pound when I come out of the shower. I'm in there for 38 minutes. That might be waterlogged stuff. I don't know.
You're a sponge.
That's funny. But I do have to say, losing weight and gaining weight, the whole like body type, endomorph, mesomorph, ectomorph, like everybody kind of has their like basic body type, and whichever way you're going, it's hard work. And if you're a person who is really into wanting to lose weight, you put in the work, and if you're someone who's always been skinny, it's kind of easy to look at those who are trying to lose weight and be envious of them, because it's really, really hard work to gain muscle. And whichever way you're going, you're in a noble journey, a noble struggle, and just keep supporting everybody else around you, even if they're trying to go in the opposite direction of you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone, Chad. I'm charging the same direction you are. and from what you said, Chris, it sounds like you were too initially.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because right now I'm bulking, if you will. And so I had a really low body fat percentage when I started. I was like 5% or something crazy.
Whoa.
And so it's been like a mental struggle to see that kind of slowly evaporate. But I'm keeping my head down and focusing on what I'm doing, because I know it's different when you've been there, right? So if you've been through the process, it's a little bit different, and you have a little bit more confidence in yourself to be able to say, all right, I've done this before. I know I can get back there. But now I've got a different goal in mind with that. So it's been a mental struggle, and I know this happens for people who get down to a reasonable body weight, let's say, where they were, let's say, obese, and they get down to a reasonable body weight, and they want to start like a program like Body Beast, and they are just petrified or, really, really scared about adding calories and adding or taking away their, 20 to 30 minutes of cardio, whatever it happened to be. And so I can appreciate it from both perspectives, just like Michael said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have a friend and so does Michael, who's in his 60s, and the guy is rail thin, or at least I think he is. I mean, when we go to the gym, I can see his shoulder blades like tearing through his back, and he will not gain any weight. He weighs 165, and by God, that's all I'm going to be. And I said, for God's sakes, get a cheeseburger, anything, or at least an extra tofu. And he will not. 165 is it. It's a wall.
You tried to throw a cheeseburger at him, but you missed.
I did.
Yeah.
It happened.
Yeah.
It's funny how people do fixate on weight, and when weight isn't really not their enemy.
Right.
Really.
Yeah. But people have to want it for themselves.
Yeah. True. What, the cheeseburger? Yes. They have to want their
They gotta want it. We were talking about that earlier this week. Just it's so easy to want something for the people that you're coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like you are wanting it for them more than they want it for themselves.
Yep.
And we really have to kind of follow their lead, but provide a sense of inspiration to show what's possible, and empowering. But you can't want something more for somebody else than they want it for themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it just kind of goes back to the whole idea of keep expanding your circle, because all the energy that you could put into one person who is really like resisting or just not ready for it, that could be spent on somebody else who's just going to be so incredibly appreciative and ready and just wants to go and be their absolute best.
Yeah. And I actually saw that happen yesterday. Somebody that I just kind of started to talk to, that I wasn't even asking him about it. He actually ended up approaching me about it. So, and that's the one that I ended up signing up last night to do the challenge pack. So the ones that want it will come to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's all these different models of like, how do you find people? And, there's like the fisherman's model where you just kind of dangle the bait in the water and you wait for them to eat. Then there's the trapper model where you kind of like set an opportunity but you're like in a really opportune place. And then there's the hunter model where you're kind of more pursuing certain people or certain groups of people, and everybody kind of has their own way that works best for them, and sometimes it'll shift from time to time, and based on your personality and the kind of people that you want to attract. Like I don't think that there's any one right way to go about it, but I think it's something that's interesting to be aware of, that that's going on. Sometimes you're chasing somebody and sometimes they're chasing you, and you're kind of being the little shiny lure. And so like Chris, when you did your photo shoot, I'm curious to know what impact did that have on your coaching business, and were people attracted to you because of that?
It's interesting because I and this is maybe an excuse, whatever. I tend to find that people are a little bit more intimidated than they are inspired sometimes. So it's kind of a catch-22. You're like, well, geez, I don't look as good as that guy. I can't certainly live up to what he's doing. So I've kind of backed off a little bit in that respect. But at the same time, again, like you said earlier, it's like you're going to find people that are attracted to that at some point. And so you can't stop doing what you know is you in order to find people that certainly aren't going to be willing to stay with you in terms of stay with your pace or whatever. So I would say it didn't have a overwhelming effect, but it had an effect on me from a mental perspective and just a growing perspective, I would say. So it's always interesting to get yourself out there into new experiences, and it's always a learning experience no matter what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's so hard to try to make people understand that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, filters and lighting have a lot to do with it. So
yes. We all have our favorite filters, and we all know that if you're going to do your after pictures, make sure you have really great down lighting, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Doing the photo shoot with Joam, it's kind of interesting just to see his process with lighting as well, because he's very aware of lighting placement and intensity and color, and especially like catching the abs at a particular angle so that they pop. So whenever you're coaching your people, for our before pictures, which we're calling our goodbye pictures, let them know, be as terrible as possible.
Yeah.
As miserable and unhappy, and straight on lighting, and make sure it's like fluorescent lighting. It's terrible. Then for your after pictures, put on that smile and that down lighting, and just really make a pop.
Yeah.
So that's good. Anything else, Chris, that you wanted to share? Any like best practices or tips or things that really get you going? Totally putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I don't have any best practices per se, other than just be consistent in whatever that means for you. A lot of times I myself am guilty of this. I'll get caught up in what is someone else doing that I could be doing, or what is someone else doing that I'm not doing. And unfortunately, we're all humans in that sense, and we think that, if I do that, that'll be the difference maker. But in reality, it comes back to that nutrition kind of perspective. It's not sustainable for you. You're probably not going to be able to sustain it anyway. So it's not worth doing. So really just, be consistent with whatever it is that you're able to be consistent with. So if that's, Instagram, for example, or if that's, supporting the customers that you currently have, because, that's a great source of referrals, or if that's, finding new people, or whatever it happens to be, just be consistent with it, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great word. And when something new that's shiny does come along, I love your analogy of the nutrition. Like, don't just double your calories overnight. Add 100 calories. Look at maybe an Instagram account, and but don't spend all day on it.
Right.
If you're going to do something new, just kind of gradually work into it and see if that's working for you, if you're getting results. And if you are, then you can kind of shift things around and make that work.
Right.
I love that. Yep. That's a good word. Well, thank you so much for coming and just joining us and letting us pick your brain. Now we will all be beasts like Chris Coburn.
No, I appreciate Michael, and it was my pleasure. So anytime you guys have questions, fitness, nutrition, whatever, Michael, I'm sure we're friends. I know we're friends on Facebook, but anybody else that wants to send me a friend request, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Yeah.
Great.
Chris.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
You betcha.
Great. Well, everybody have a good night, and we will catch you later. I will put this video on an unlisted YouTube link, and I'll send that to you, Chris, as well.
Okay.
So that you
Perfect.
have that for your reference, and feel free to use that for whatever you like.
Okay. Thanks, Michael.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right. Night.
Great.